White principal tries to punish black student, but exposes an old sin instead. It started with a hallway scuffle, or so they claimed. But what really happened never mattered, not when your skin came pre-stamped with guilt. 17-year-old Malik James was already marked before he even walked through the front doors of Halston High that Monday morning. He was walking to his locker when Mr. Whitmore's voice, sharp as a crack of lightning, echoed through the halls. Malik James. My office. Now. Heads turned. Eyes lingered. Someone snickered. Malik blinked. What did I do? Mr. Whitmore's eyes narrowed like they had a story already written. We'll talk about that where it's private. Private. That word made Malik's stomach twist. He knew that office. Cold. Gray. And every time he walked out of it, something was taken: a lunch period, a week of after-school detention, or worse. He followed in silence, his sneakers squeaking lightly against the polished tiles. Every step felt heavier than the last. Behind the closed door, Mr. Whitmore didn't waste time. You assaulted a student. Malik's eyes widened. I didn't touch anyone. I have a report. Witnesses. Your record doesn't do you any favors. There it was. His record. Late once because the bus broke down. Suspended once because he talked back, or rather, corrected a teacher on Malcolm X's actual birth date. Malik's voice stayed calm, but a storm was brewing in his chest. I didn't assault anyone. I broke up a fight. Logan and Deshaun were going at it. I pulled them apart. Mr. Whitmore's lips curled into something between a smirk and disbelief. How convenient that your name is the only one mentioned in the complaint. Malik wanted to scream, but he remembered what his mom always said. They'll paint you angry before you even raise your voice. So he sat still, fists clenched, heart thudding. I'm suspending you for 5 days, Mr. Whitmore said, scribbling furiously on a pink slip. That slip was more than paper. It was a brand. Another black mark. Another reason for colleges to pass him over. As Malik left the office, he passed Ms. Rivera, the school counselor. She saw the tightness in his shoulders, the fire behind his eyes. Malik, she called. You okay? He stopped, barely turned. Ask him. She looked toward Whitmore's office. Her brow furrowed. That afternoon, Ms. Rivera requested the surveillance footage from the east hallway. The next day, Malik sat at home, staring blankly at a textbook, trying to focus, trying not to punch a wall. His phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Rivera. Come to school tomorrow. I want to show you something. The next morning, he walked into her office. She locked the door behind them. I got the video. She pressed play. The grainy footage showed Logan, a white kid on the football team, throw the first punch. Deshaun tried to duck. Malik rushed in, clearly separating them. Never aggressive. Never violent. Why wasn't this included in the report? Malik asked. She looked at him. Because whoever wrote it lied. They stared at each other. What now? He asked. Ms. Rivera's voice was low, firm. We confront him. But not just about this. She pulled out a folder. Inside were printed emails, copies of past disciplinary reports, and something else. A newspaper clipping dated 1999. The headline read, Black student claims discrimination at Halston High principal cleared. Below it, a photo. Young Mr. Whitmore. Same cold eyes. I dug deeper, she said. It wasn't his first time. Malik's voice was hollow. He did this before? Worse. That boy Andre Ellis ended up dropping out. His family moved. No one ever followed up. Malik didn't speak for a long time. Then, softly, how many more? Ms. Rivera's silence was answer enough. They made a plan. 2 days later, Malik stood in front of the school board. Ms. Rivera sat beside him. Several students filled the room. Some staff. Mr. Whitmore sat at the end of the table, arms crossed, face tight. Malik spoke. His voice didn't shake. He recounted the truth. The footage. The lies. Then he held up the article. I'm not the first, but I want to be the last. Murmurs rippled through the room. Whitmore scoffed. You're grasping at ghosts, son. That's when Ms. Rivera stood. I have documentation of 6 similar cases. All black students. All punished disproportionately. And all tied to your name. Silence fell like a curtain. The board members looked uneasy. Then a voice from the back of the room spoke. I was that ghost. Heads turned. An older black man stepped forward. Andre Ellis. Everything he said is true, Andre said, pointing at Malik. I was just a kid when he crushed my future. He doesn't get to do that again. Mr. Whitmore paled. The meeting ended in chaos. But Malik? Malik stood taller than ever. And that was just the beginning. For the first time in weeks, Malik woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. Not anger, not fear, hope. The school board didn't say much when the meeting ended, just murmurs of investigation and review process. But the look on Mr. Whitmore's face when Andre Ellis stood up, that was enough to tell Malik something had cracked. At home that night, his mother, Tamika, couldn't stop staring at him. Her eyes were moist with a mix of worry and pride. "You spoke like a man today," she said softly, sitting across from him at the dinner table. Malik looked up. "I didn't feel like one." She smiled, just a little. "Sometimes, it's the broken ones that grow into something stronger." The next day at school was different. Students ones he didn't even know by name nodded at him in the hallway. A few fist bumps. A couple whispered respect S. Even Deshawn, the kid involved in the fight, came up during lunch and slapped a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Yo, I saw the footage. You had my back. I owe you." But not everyone was clapping. Logan, the white football player who started the fight, hadn't been suspended. Word spread that he'd just gotten a verbal warning. And then there were the teachers. Some were visibly uneasy around Malik now, like his voice was too loud, his spine too straight. Like he wasn't playing the good black kid anymore. It was in his AP English class that Mr. Harlan, a tenured white teacher with a dry tone and a stare that stripped you bare, paused mid-lecture. He looked straight at Malik. "I hear you've become quite the activist." A few students chuckled nervously. Malik didn't flinch. "Just telling the truth, sir." Harlan gave a thin smile. "Let's see how well that works for you on the college essays." The room went quiet. Later, Malik sat with Ms. Rivera again. "You're a threat now," she said simply. "To the system. And the system always pushes back." Malik swallowed. "I didn't ask to be a threat." "No," she said. "You asked to be treated fairly. That's threatening enough for some people." 2 weeks later, the board's investigation began. They sent in a special review committee, an external team of educators, legal advisors, and one diversity officer. Mr. Whitmore was temporarily relieved of duty while they looked into the claims. In the halls, the whispers turned to rumors. Some teachers were furious loyal to Whitmore, calling the review a witch hunt. Others stayed silent. But Ms. Daniels, the art teacher, came up to Malik one afternoon. "I saw what you did. I should have spoken up years ago." Malik blinked. "What do you mean?" She looked down. "Andre Ellis. He came to me for help in '99. I didn't want to get involved." Malik stared at her. She whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked away. The deeper the committee dug, the more names surfaced. 12 students in the past decade. All black or Latino. All punished harshly for minor or unverified infractions. Meanwhile, white students with similar or worse behavior had spotless records. But the bomb dropped when an anonymous staff member leaked internal emails between Mr. Whitmore and select teachers. One read, "Watch out for Malik. He's clever. Dangerous if you let him get too comfortable." Dangerous. That word echoed in Malik's head for days. It wasn't just about him. It was about how people like Whitmore saw black boys who dared to speak, think, resist. By now, media had caught wind of the story. Local outlets called it the Halston High scandal. Malik's face showed up on a morning news interview. Sitting next to Ms. Rivera, he spoke clearly. "I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life. I'm trying to protect the next kid who looks like me." The next morning, the front gate of the school was covered in signs. "Justice for Malik. Hold Whitmore accountable. We are not dangerous, we are students." Then came the backlash. Malik found his locker vandalized. Someone had scrawled across it, "Race-baiting liar." A teacher accidentally marked him absent on days he'd been in class. His history essay disappeared marked, not turned in. He started walking the halls with his phone recording, just in case. Ms. Rivera filed complaints, but the walls were thick. Then, one afternoon, Malik got an unexpected email. Subject, from Andre. Message, "I saw your interview. I cried, man. I never thought anyone would ever speak up about what he did. You're braver than I was. Thank you." Malik stared at it for a long time, then hit reply. "You survived. That's brave too." That same week, the committee called Malik in for a private testimony. He sat in a room with 5 adults, a microphone on the table, and his hands sweating against his jeans. He told them everything. Every time Whitmore smirked when calling him boy. Every detention that felt like a warning. Every time his truth was twisted. Every time his future felt like it was shrinking. When he finished, one committee member, a black woman with silver hair and a soft voice, leaned forward. "You said something earlier, that you didn't want to be a threat." Malik nodded. She smiled. "Don't be afraid of that anymore. Maybe the world needs you to be." 3 days later, the school made its decision public. Mr. Whitmore was permanently removed as principal. He would not be allowed to work in education again. The school board released a formal apology to Malik and to the students affected in past years. A full audit of disciplinary records was ordered. Halston High would begin mandatory anti-bias and equity training for all staff. Malik stood on the steps of the school as reporters gathered. Next to him was his mother, Ms. Rivera, Andre Ellis, and a crowd of students, black, brown, white, loud and proud. He spoke into the mic, his voice strong. "This wasn't just about me. It was about every kid who ever got told to sit down when they should have stood up. I didn't want this fight, but I'm not sorry I took it. Because now, the next Malik won't have to fight it alone." The applause was thunder, but deeper than that, it was change. And Malik? He didn't just survive Halston High. He changed it. That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the cheers of the crowd still echoing faintly in his ears. But underneath all the celebration, a strange emptiness lingered. He had won whatever winning meant in a place like Halston High, but something inside him whispered that this fight wasn't just about his suspension. It was about being seen, being heard. And that fight, that wasn't over. The next morning, Halston High walked differently. Teachers made eye contact with him, now some awkward, others respectful. The principal's office was locked. Empty. A new interim administrator had been brought in, Dr. Langston, a tall black woman with kind eyes but a voice sharp enough to carve steel. At the morning assembly, she took the mic and addressed the students. "Change is not a moment. It's a movement, and we will walk through it together, uncomfortable as that may be. Some of you have seen injustice up close. Some of you have benefited from silence. But from today forward, silence will no longer be an option." Malik watched from the second row, arms folded across his chest, his heart pounding. Later, in the library, he was approached by a group of students, not just black kids, but Latino, Asian, and even a few white classmates. "We want to start a student equity council," said a girl named Priya. "We need your voice." At first, Malik hesitated. He was tired, but tired wasn't an excuse anymore. He nodded slowly. "Let's do it." By the end of the week, they held their first meeting. 12 students packed into the counseling center, notebooks in hand, anger in their hearts, but purpose in their eyes. They talked about biased dress code enforcement, about how teachers called on white students more, about why there were no black history books in the curriculum that didn't end in chains, marches, or gunshots. It was raw, it was real, and it was just the beginning. Ms. Rivera helped them draft a formal proposal for a new racial justice initiative, one that included peer-led workshops, cultural literacy training for teachers, and community forums. When they presented it to the school board, one older white man raised an eyebrow. "Isn't this a bit aggressive for a high school?" Malik didn't flinch. He looked the man dead in the eye. "What's aggressive is suspending a student for telling the truth. We're just making sure you finally hear it." The board voted 52 in favor, but not everyone celebrated. An anonymous parent group calling themselves Concerned Citizens for Balanced Education began organizing against them. They claimed the initiative was divisive, politically charged, and anti-American. Malik received hate mail. One letter had no return address. Just 3 words, scrawled in red ink. "Stay in line." The school installed cameras around his locker. Dr. Langston ordered staff to report any harassment immediately. But Malik? He didn't back down. At the next student meeting, he stood before the group. "I don't want y'all to follow me. I want you to find your own voices. Because if it's just me, they can silence one kid, but they can't silence a generation." That line, it went viral. Someone posted it online. It was shared over 50,000 times in a week. Soon, students from other schools reached out. Emails, DMs, videos. A girl in Georgia who had been expelled for organizing a Black Lives Matter protest messaged, "You made me feel less alone." A Latino boy in Arizona sent a video of his classmates walking out in protest of a racist math teacher. They carried signs with Malik's words, "They can't silence a generation." Something bigger had started. Meanwhile, Malik still had to finish his senior year. College applications loomed. He was writing an essay when Ms. Rivera walked in with a letter. "You got something," she said, her smile subtle. It was from Howard University. Full scholarship. Malik blinked. "What? You're going to D.C., baby," she said, laughing. "You earned it." He sat there, stunned. He had spent so long fighting to just exist, he forgot what it felt like to dream. The last day of school came too fast. At graduation, Malik took the stage as class speaker. He wore his cap slightly tilted, gold tassel swaying, a small pin of the Pan-African flag on his stole. He looked out at the sea of faces, some cheering, some tearful, some stone-cold. But he didn't speak for them. He spoke for the unseen. People said I was angry. They were right. But what they missed was the love behind the rage. Love for my community. Love for the truth. Love for the kids who will walk these halls after me. He held up his diploma. "This isn't just paper. It's proof that you can try to erase us. But we write back." The applause was thunderous. Even the teachers stood. Even the ones who once looked through him. That night, Malik sat with his mother on the porch, their feet bare, the summer wind soft against their skin. "You proud of me, Ma?" She looked over. "Baby, I was proud the moment you didn't fold." Silence stretched. Then she added, "But I'm prouder of the world you helped unfold." He didn't cry. Not yet. But something bloomed in his chest. Something that felt like peace. Because in a country that so often tried to shrink him, Malik had grown taller. And he had left behind not just footsteps, but a blueprint. Washington, D.C. in the fall was nothing like home. The streets were louder. The air held a sharper chill. But Malik adjusted quickly. He had been walking through storms his whole life. Howard University wasn't just a dream come true. It was a continuation. His first class was Black Political Thought, taught by a wiry, no-nonsense professor named Dr. Adele Monroe. On the first day, she walked into the room, looked around, and said, "If you're here to be comfortable, leave now. We're not here to make you feel good. We're here to make you dangerous." Malik smiled. He had come to the right place. In class, he studied Frederick Douglass, Angela Davis, Assata Shakur. At night, he devoured books like The Fire Next Time and The New Jim Crow. Every paragraph lit a fuse. Every lecture added fuel. But even in D.C., the fight followed him. During a campus-wide town hall, a visiting donor, an old white man from Texas, commented that students today are too sensitive, always imagining racism where there isn't any. Malik stood. "Sir, if we're imagining it, why are we the only ones bleeding from it?" The room erupted. His reputation spread again, this time not as a troublemaker, but a leader, a fire starter, a scholar. By sophomore year, he was co-chair of the Student Justice Coalition. They organized teach-ins, wrote policy drafts, pushed the university to divest from private prison contractors. Malik wasn't chasing headlines anymore. He was chasing solutions. One cold November night, while preparing a speech for a national student equity conference, he got a call from Ms. Rivera. "Malik," she said, voice trembling, "it's happening. Halston's making the changes. Real ones." The district had passed a new restorative justice policy. The entire staff of Halston High had undergone training. They had hired 3 new Black and Latino teachers. And more importantly, students had a voice now. The Equity Council Malik helped start had become an official advisory group to the school board. He sat there in silence, letting the warmth of that news fill every scar he'd once hidden. "You should come back," Ms. Rivera said. "Speak to them. Let them see what happened when one kid refused to disappear." So he did. That December, Malik returned to Halston High, this time not in a hoodie, not with clenched fists, but in a navy suit, a silver tie, and a calm that demanded attention. The school gym was packed. Students, teachers, parents. Some remembered his name. Others only knew his story. He stepped up to the mic. His voice was deeper now, more measured, but still filled with that same fire. "I used to think change came when people finally understood you. But I was wrong. Change comes when people can't ignore you anymore. When you take up space unapologetically. When you refuse to be invisible." He scanned the crowd. "I don't want to be the exception. I want to be the start of a pattern." When the speech ended, students rushed up, some crying, some asking questions, others just wanting a moment of presence. One girl, maybe 14, clutched her notebook and whispered, "They keep telling me I talk too loud." He crouched to her level, looked her in the eye. "Good. Make them listen. Outside, he walked with Ms. Rivera down the same hallway where he'd once been humiliated. It looked the same: beige lockers, scuffed tiles. But it felt different. I can't believe it, he murmured. She smiled. Believe it. And remember, revolutions don't always start with marches. Sometimes they start with one boy saying, "No more." 5 years later, Malik stood behind a podium in New York City at a nationally televised summit on racial justice and educational equity. His name was now prefaced with titles: author, advocate, community organizer. But he never let that polish the truth. He spoke like someone who still remembered the sting of every boy, every detention slip, every door slammed in his face. He shared not just his story, but the stories of students around the country. He read letters from youth who had found courage in his journey. He presented data showing real reform, districts adopting restorative justice, rising graduation rates among Black and brown students, decreased suspensions. At the end of his speech, the crowd gave him a standing ovation. Later that evening, during a quiet moment backstage, an older white man approached him. "I used to be a principal," he said, voice heavy with age. "I made mistakes. Looked away when I should have spoken up. I didn't believe kids like you back then." Malik looked him over. "I'm not here for apologies," he said, "but I am here for truth." The man nodded slowly. "Then let me start by saying this. I wish I'd had the courage you did, back then and now." Malik said nothing, just offered his hand. That night, Malik walked through the streets of Harlem alone, snow falling lightly on his coat. The city hummed sirens, music, laughter, footsteps, 1,000 lives crossing and crashing like waves. He paused on a corner and looked up, not at a building, not at a billboard, but at the sky. Somewhere, long ago, a boy in a school hallway was told to keep his head down. But this man had learned to look up. Because dignity doesn't live in permission. It lives in the bones. And now, the world would learn. You can try to write our stories for us, but we will always write them back. Louder, stronger, and free. The end. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.